So we're only less than a week away from the new patch, Year 5, Season 2, and I couldn't be more excited. Making Division 2 content just hits different now that we know Div 3 is coming out. You know what I'm saying? And with this new patch comes a lot to do for new players, for returning players, and for veterans, everybody. And for the new players, you're in for a treat, because if you've never played the Division 1 or Division 2, you got to be careful, because Division has a tendency to make people get hooked to it, to turn people into diehard fans. There's just something about this game that nothing else has that keeps us coming back. Now, normally I wouldn't be as excited about what's to come, because you know, when the developers bring new content like new exotics, new gear, and new weapons, it's like, okay, we've had this before. We go farm for the gear, we play with it, and then we're done. But since the Division 3 is coming out, it gives me hope and optimism for the future. This game has a future, so there's a reason for us to be excited about it. So all those comments of people talking about, oh, this game is dead, why are you still covering this game? I mean, I get it during the time, because I was feeling like there was nothing else coming later, but they can't really say that anymore. Anyways, let me just tell you, for the new players, what you can expect coming into Division 2. You have Warlords of New York, which was the last expansion, the biggest expansion. It was a huge revamp that changed all the gear and made it to where it is now. It's a great story. Warlords of New York was a really good expansion, so I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy that. Then you have all the exotics that you can attain, the manhunts. They're kind of redundant, to be honest, but for someone who's new to the Division universe, it could be exciting. Especially since this latest manhunt, where you had to actually find people who were kidnapped, it was actually pretty fun, and it put a different spin on the normalcy that we were used to with the manhunts before. Then you've got open world activities, you have gear, you have just getting in the lab and making builds for hours on end, theory crafting. There's so many things that you can do in this game, and I think that so many people don't know about the Division. And now is the time for you to get in if you've never played it before. They're selling it for super cheap right now, so you can get it and get into it for the new patch. Now for the returning players, I mean, I could call myself a returning player. I haven't played in such a long time, right? Last time I played was the PTS, but before that, there was a big gap. I wasn't really playing game at all. I was exploring other games. But I have all the exotics, I have all the gear. I got all of that before I took a break. And for those who are returning, you don't have to get all of the exotics. You don't have to. You could just jump in and do what you need to do for the new patch. They have some great exotics coming. You have the Ouroboros, you have the Iron Lung, you have this new exotic chess piece called the Collector, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. You don't have to get the other exotics, but there are some really desirable ones that you might want to pick up, like the St. Elmo's engine, right? This is actually the best assault rifle that's been released to date in the Division 2. I mean, it's just amazing. It has electric rounds, and for the last patch they went with this electric vibe where everything surrounded that aspect, like the new brand set and everything else. But even from before, there are some great exotics that you might want to pick up. The Ravenous, the Eagle Bear. Now you can attain these in the Dark Zone, even though it's a very small chance, plus the Dark Zone is toxic. There are a lot of weapons that you might want to pick up, but as I said, it's not a necessity. If you want to just jump in and experience the game fresh and new with what they're going to have now, that's cool too. But I will say that for returning players, it's a great time for you to come back as well, because now we have Incursions, and I forgot to mention that about the new players. But for them, it's going to be new anyway. Everything's going to be new to them, so it's like they wouldn't have known that the Incursions weren't there in the first place. So for the returning players, this is really going to give you an incentive to want to come back and play, because Incursions were fun. They were fun even though they were used as a means to farm for just certain weapons and gear. So people would just farm them back to back, but they were a great activity for a game that didn't have raids. They were like mini raids, but we have raids in Div 2, so this is a great add-on to that aspect. Not to mention the fact that the Ouroboros, the new exotic SMG, is pretty much going to be goated. I play with it in the PTS. It's a new SMG that's basically the counter of counters. Now, if you know me, you know that my builds always derive from counter builds. I try and look for the hardest hitting meta builds, or the hardest to deal with meta builds that's plaguing PvP, and I try to counter it. 99% of the time I'm successful. These off meta builds that I make aren't for everybody, but they work for me, and some people say they work for them. Nothing's gonna change with this Ouroboros. Matter of fact, let me just tell you what it does. Okay, so when an enemy tries to attack you with a status effect, be it fire, bleed, anything, the next magazine after you reload, half of that is filled with whatever status effect you were afflicted with. This is crazy, because do you know what the meta is in skills for DPS players? They use foam. They use foam to trap you so that you can't move and they can burn you down really quick. Now, I have a build idea already made in mind to counter whoever tries to do that, and it's with the Ouroboros, and I cannot wait to show you guys. But I'm not here to talk about in detail what these weapons do. I'm just letting you know that we have a stalwart list of exotics and gear, even the name gear. At first, I didn't think the new brand set was worth it, but I made a build with that. So I'm speaking to the new and returning players, and the people who are veterans have already been here. They know what it is. They've been playing the PTS, they've been watching the videos, they know what's coming, and so you know what time it is. But I would like to highlight something about the explosive aspect of this that I was talking about. Now, we know that there's a new exotic chess piece called the Collector, and they gave us the named version of Mad Bomber, Perfectly Mad Bomber. Now, I made two builds, another two builds that I can't wait to show you, because it's really breaking the mold and it's bringing back that explosive aspect that we had a long time ago. I made this build, this is probably the second build I made on Division, just like 3 years ago. And this was before the Warlords of New York revamp, when they changed everything. So if you see this build, you can see it and go to my page and look at my oldest videos, and you'll see this on the list. And if you look at it, back in the day, the developers had it to where the gear system was that you could roll multiple stats and attributes on your gear, all 6 of them. So they had something called damage to elites, which was removed. There's no longer damage to elites, but people would roll like 85% of that and just melt these elites like crazy. That's gone. But the kicker is that they used to have explosive damage that you can roll on every piece, 10%. So you can get 60% explosive damage on a build, and that's not even including the old talent that was removed called payload and what demolition and specialization gives you. But what I'm saying is that this new collector chess piece is going to help explosive builds come back in a way, and I'm going to show you how. Because one of the things that the chess piece does is that the more enemies that are in the grenade radius, the more damage it deals with that grenade. So this is going to encourage people to toss more grenades or just make a build surrounding explosive damage. And you know, I love that playstyle. It would be nice if they reverted the merciless or the ravenous back to explosive damage, but not really, because that would be actually broken. Anyways, I want you to tell me what you're most excited about coming in Year 5 Season 2. What weapons are you looking forward to using? What gear set? Oh yeah, and I forgot to tell you, the 𝐸𝐴𝐸𝐸𝐻𝐼𝐸, the new gear set, is one coming back that resembles Firecrest. And Firecrest was one of my favorite gear sets back in the day. But anyways, tell me what you think about this video. What are you most excited about? I know you're hyped about the future because we have Division 3. I just want to talk about this in the comment section. Anyways, this is my 2 cents. I wanted to tell you that now is a better time than any to get into the Division 2 if you haven't already, or if you're a returning player. I appreciate you listening to the end, and I'll catch you in the next video. Be right out.